This is the Jeremiah Gunn Show. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your patience as we get this thing rolling. It's new. It's new to me, but we're gonna thank you for your patience, and we're gonna invite you to listen. And thank you for listening, because this is all about. It's not about me. This is about you. This is Jeremiah Gunn Show. I'm your undocumented expert. I'm Dr. No, K-N-O-W. I'm here, your answer man. It's time to question authority. It's time to ask me anything. Ask me anything. As we go along, you're going to find out. But I wanted to talk to you. I want to talk to you. I have to explain why we're doing what we're doing. Simon Sinek said recently in the business world of communications is start with why. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to explain why right now. This program's dedicated to Charlie Kirk, the martyr, the hero, the courageous, Patrick Henry of our age, the Stephen of the good book, martyr, hero, the true sense of the word martyr. You don't want to throw that word around. I know there's a particular eye problem that we have right now where we have a religion that's calling them martyrs when they're really murderers. Different M word. But here's what we have to do. The purpose here is to free you. That's why we're doing this. It's to free you. You are not obligated to participate in the discourse regime that was dictated to you, cradle to grave, Head Start through PhD. You're not obligated to it. It's not. It doesn't own you. It doesn't own you. So we're going to break free here, and that's what we're doing. That's why we're doing this. This program's dedicated to Charlie Kirk and to the Republic. The Republic, that's one of the lies we're going to sweep away here, is the Republic for which it stands. Okay? What I'm going to do is coalesce the vapors of the human experience to summarize, synthesize, and cauterize the supersized, metastasized lies. We can't compromise. It ain't mansplaining, it's cansplaining. I can explain everything. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed of the fact that I've spent my whole life studying sociology, human nature, history, philosophy, America in particular and in general. It is unique. It is exceptional, despite what one recent president told us. But we're going to talk about, it's more important, president is more important than precedent. We're going to cover that. We're going to cover that as soon as we can here. So please stick with me. And these are the times that try men's souls. This is CSN, the Common Sense Network, part of the ISI network. And I greet the whole world in peace and love and truth. I greet you in peace and love and truth. I love you. I want to talk to you. I want to greet the whole world. I want to talk to the world, but America first. America first. And just like it sounds. Because as America goes, so goes the world. They made a movie years ago called A Day Without Mexicans. That's kind of interesting, kind of racist. But they really should have made A Day Without Americans. That'll be a whole nother broadcast here, but, the way they're telling you to think, the way they're forcing your mind, this is totalitarian when they tell you what to think. Not just what to do, what you can eat, where you can go, how much you have to pay if you do go somewhere, like exit tax, capital gains tax. This country was born to be unique, and our first revolution was over 10% taxes. That's too high, said they. That's too high. So this nation was created by geniuses, and it's being run by imbeciles. Just exactly what they set up, just exactly what they hoped to set up to prevent things like democracy, is happening. And so the truth is somewhere that we don't even realize anymore what it is, where it is. It's really important. It's very, very important. So I greet the whole world. I hope everyone in the world is listening. Some of the best calls, some of the best comments come from across the pond or over in Asia, where they know from whence they speaketh about totalitarianism and so forth. So, to the resistance, here's our message, the true resistance. Les sanglots des violons de l'automne blessent mon cœur d'une longueur monotone. Les sanglots des violons de l'automne blessent mon cœur d'une longueur monotone. Astvats ornine, Astvats orni, Amerika, Kaiserens nye klerde, Tvorak Israel, Bože sakrani Amerika, Choda Amerika ra barakat dejad. En la tierra del ciego el tuerto es rey. En la tierra del ciego el tuerto es rey. Yo vivo en la frontera del ciego. Bararak, Allahu, Amerika. Bararak, Allahu, Amerika. Mao Zedong Shu Mo Guai. Mao Zedong Shu Go Mo Guai. Mumalik Nako, Indiko Ginoa. Die Gedanken sind frei. Gott segne Amerika. Gott schütze Amerika. So let's get started. Let's explain what's going on here. There are 1,000,000 podcasts. I don't know, people in their car, people in studios, spreading a word, the word. Well, let's find out what that is, because I've been listening to all of them since the late 1900s, and I haven't heard anybody who had what they used to say in court and make you swear an oath to, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So, we are stratified. That you can listen to anybody you want. You can listen to all different kinds, and we're going to talk about the stratification and what that spectrum looks like. Everything's a spectrum. That's why we need to understand the battle, understand that's being played right now. There's a battle for civilization. A great man said, if we don't fight like hell, we're going to lose. We're going to lose our country. But, how do you lose a country? You lose the Constitution, from whence it's made, for which it stands. No Constitution, no country. So there's all this stuff going around, these precedents and decisions being made about, I think this and I think that. And here's a little clue. Whenever somebody today says, I think, what they used to say a few years ago was, I feel. That's more appropriate. I think, ... First of all, it doesn't matter what you think. It really does. I'm not obligated to what you think. If a realtor or a banker or a mortgage or a tax man says, I think your mortgage, the contract, the covenant you did to buy your house, I think it says this. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what you think. And secondly, they don't think. They emote. The great prophet Thomas Sowell said that, the problem is that it's not that Johnny can't read, although he can't, is that he can't think. The problem is he doesn't know what thinking is. He confuses it with feeling. So whenever you hear him say, I think, ... First of all, understand that it's not legitimate. They haven't established where they're coming from. And you have to do that. You have to understand what platform we're on, what language we're speaking here, otherwise you can't translate it in the discourse regime. And it's not by their rules. They don't get to make stuff up. They don't get to call you one of the logical fallacies when their whole platform is a logical fallacy. So we're going to talk about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because I've listened to every one of these, the full spectrum. And there's some that are great. There's some that are great. But how do you know what they know? Why they're so confident about it? And the idea that you're just supposed to accept it. Okay? So, and it's kind of time to grow up. When you're on jury duty, they say to you, look, we know you weren't there, but you're the judge today, you 12 citizens, and you have to use all of your common sense. This is the Common Sense Network, part of the ISI network, by the way. Common Sense is that little book that created this country. It wasn't the bullets, it wasn't the muskets, it wasn't the cannons or the swords, although those were necessary. It was that little booklet that motivated people to say, hey, I can't argue with that. I can't refute that. That's it. So when you grow up, you don't say things like, well, both sides are the same. That falls under the lead prophet for this age, the Orwellian irony age, who said, what did he say? Ignorance is bliss. Ignorance, I like the word ignorance. I like that people are ignorant. And it's important to say that because it doesn't mean uneducated. Orwell said that, there are some ideas so ridiculous that only the intellectuals would believe them. Haven't we seen that play out real time, especially in the last couple decades? Yeah, they ask you to believe things that are just not possible, let alone plausible. So, So when you're on jury duty, whatever, they tell you, you got to be an adult. And an adult doesn't say, well, both sides are the same. No, they're not. They're not even close. They're not even close. And so as Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell, his pupil that exceeded him, they said, hey, everything's about trade-offs. Guns or butter, they used to teach. It's not guns and butter. It's not, it's not, well, I want to have my cake and eat it too. I want to have your money, even though I didn't earn it. I want to have whatever Bernie or Pocahontas said I can have. I want that. I want that. It's called the spoiled child syndrome, spoiled brat. So we've got to grow up. That's the reason why they set the age for the president at 35. They really should have set the age for voting at 35, but they didn't live that long. So they set it at 21 until Nixon came along and screwed it up. So history is going to show you what we're supposed to have, not what we have right now. So if you think that both sides are the same, that's just a cop-out. That's ignorant. And ignorant, the root word in it, and the reason I like it, the root word in ignorant is ignore. You're ignoring it, whether you know better or not. As Hilary Rotten Klingon said, willful suspension of disbelief. Boy, doesn't she love that in her sheeple. But she says that it's what the other side's guilty of. So, if you choose to ignore something, there's none so blind as him who will not see, as they them that will not see. That's the real blind. That's like Jesus told the Pharisees, if you really were blind, we wouldn't have an issue. But you say you see, and you don't. You're blind. And if the blind lead the blind, won't they all go over a ditch? Into a ditch? Over a cliff? Like lemmings? Yes, the answer to that is correct. They will. En la tierra del ciego, el tuerto es rey. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So these demagogues that are leading you, lemmings, instead of we the people, over the cliff, for a little temporary safety and security, you're giving up your liberty. It's not both sides are the same. Both sides are the same. Ergo, I'm better. I'm just bailing out. I'm not going to be involved because I'm better than both sides. Well, how do you even make that judgment? But by the way, they're not the same. They're not the same at all. Would you say that South Park? Well, let's take some little earlier example. You think both sides were the same in the Civil War? The Civil War that's still going on today, thanks to the Democrats who started it. You think both sides are the same? One of them wants you to be slaves, and one of them wants to free you. And yeah, there's some squishy ones who don't know what they are, but they're not the same. They haven't been the same my entire adult life. I know maybe the closest of the sides that were the same were Nixon and Kennedy in 1960. Maybe it was never been the same since. But JFK was more Republican, more conservative, more Reagan-esque, whatever, than Nixon. Nixon was a progressive. He was a rhino. He was one of these guys who thinks they know better, like John Thune right now. He's got the whole country. They say that's polling 80%, this election integrity. And he's like, nah, I don't think so. He was from South Dakota. I think my HOA is bigger than South Dakota. But he's going to stand in, just like a Democrat-appointed judge, a leftist judge. He's going to stand in there. But I'm getting off course. Okay. He wasn't elected president. Those judges weren't elected to SCOTUS or the judicial branch or anything. So if you think the Civil War, both sides were the same, that's wrong. There's not right and left. It's right and wrong. Let me give you an example from recent times. Do you think South Park is the same as Scientology? Do you think South Park is the same as, they're both the same. They're just, they're two mobs arguing, like Seinfeld said, in an interview. They're two mobs arguing at each other, yelling and shouting at each other. And I'm over here, I'm better. I can't make a decision. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. I can't decide which one. I'm going to say that I'm better by pointing out that they're both wrong. So they're both wrong. Okay. So if you think South Park, so what happened with them? South Park started making fun of Scientology. They would put their cartoons up and they'd put this real subtitles underneath that this is what they actually believe. Like, Martians coming down and salting volcanoes. And they put subtitles under it. We're not making this up, folks. So Tom Cruise goes to Viacom or something, Scientologist, cultist, and says, hey, tell them to knock that off. So Viacom has some pressure, and they put pressure on South Park to knock it off, even though it was glorious and wonderful, and people were having a lot of fun with it. There's a real moral case for mockery. PragerU had the head of the Babylon Bee there and made the moral case for mockery. There's something there. It's really true. So Scientology had to back down. They had to stop their First Amendment rights. First Amendment rights that Kimmy Kimmel has. Kimmy Kimmel. His wife tells him to mouth and cry on command and stuff. They don't apparently have those rights. So what they did is they released an official press release. An official press release. It was gorgeous. It said, very well, Scientology, you win this round, but the million-year battle for planet Earth has just begun. I mean, that's smart. That's clever. If you haven't seen the movie Idiocracy, it's not by the same creators, but I think it's by the guy who did King of the Hill. But Idiocracy it's a little vulgar, warning to you folks that, want to keep your children a little bit more pristine for a while. God bless you. That's good stuff. But there's a movie called Idiocracy, and it just nails it. It was actually, I found out it was based on a book called The Marching Morons. I don't know that he credited it with it, but it's just a brilliant, the idea that people are getting dumber and dumber and dumber. Sorry, it's, facts are stubborn things, said John Adams. It's a fact. You can chart it any way you want. And the answer isn't to say, well, let's get rid of the test scores. That will pretend, that's like there was a parable about a Hindu who came over here many, many years ago, came to the West, and he saw a piece of rice through a microscope, and he saw organisms climbing on it, little live organisms climbing on it, and he was horrified. He was eating life, so he smashed the microscope. So, Charlie Kirk was doing CPR on the bullied young people of the future. talking about both sides. The tyrannized, bullied young people that were coming up to him and thanking him from the microphone instead of arguing against him, giving them back their life, giving them back their freedom, giving them back things like adulthood. And, the adult children like Bill Maher and Dave Chappelle and others, they're smart, but they don't like what happened to Charlie, but they don't know why they don't like it, and they don't understand. They just hit the bong and hit the bottle. That's exactly what Bill Maher did. He doesn't realize he had a hand in it. Same with Seinfeld. Anybody who damns with faint praise, anybody who joins the side that's saying he hates, the first duty is to just tell the truth. The first duty of intelligent men is to tell the truth. And in times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. So this is a perfect storm. It's 1776. It's 1864, where the Democrats are trying to restore, keep the Civil War going, as they have successfully. The Democrats. And it's 1984. It's really a perfect storm. And we're going to find out who wins, because this is a battle for planet Earth. It is a battle to save civilization from destruction. And, there's this 80-20 rule in sociology that, only 20% of the people out there either care or get it. The other 80%. And it's funny when they talk about polls, they say that this is an 80% issue. This is an 80% issue. They don't understand why the Democrats are clinging to it. That's all they got. But that's always the way human nature has been. So the 80-20 rule is, 80% of the people, they're not in the fight. They'll go with whichever side wins. So the 20% is divided into two tens that are going at it. There weren't that many people interested in the revolution. I think it was about a third of the people in America that wanted to get behind George Washington. The rest of them, they were loyalists, or they spied for whichever side would pay them. Imagine that. Just imagine having zero moral compass, zero integrity, and all the things we see play out every day today. So, I'm different. This is why. This to get back to why we're doing this podcast. I'm different than all of these folks. I understand all their philosophies. I've heard them all. I've done everything. I've been everything that you out there. I want to represent you. I want to hear what your story is. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your concerns. I don't want you to just line up behind one color or one letter. D, R, I for independent, C for communist. We'll get into all those letters and what they mean, but I'm an undocumented expert. I know these guys. I'm a therapist. They're always running to a therapist. Well, who said that therapist that they chose has any validity? Who said they have any validity? But they like them. They like to run to the therapist and ask them. They mean that person opened up a textbook and cooperated, regurgitated, and graduated, and now they know the vast mysteries of life, wisdom versus knowledge. Where's the knowledge? Where's the wisdom? Where is the wisdom lost in knowledge? Where's the knowledge lost in information? One of the things, Charlie Kirk was so brilliant, but one of the things he said, somebody said, what's the difference between, because they were gritching at him because he didn't have the degree. He didn't have the sheepskin from the seminary of the left. And he was so much wiser and so much smarter than all the professors that were granting those degrees. Sorry, another fact. So what, he said, well, the difference between wisdom and yeah, sure, I'll tell you. He wasn't ashamed to say the truth. He wasn't ashamed to talk to tell the good news, to be an ambassador for a whole nother way of living. for the kingdom that's lost and it may be restored? He said, wisdom is it's knowledge about things that do not change. Knowledge is about knowledge of things that do change. Now let's say, I don't know, think of something like climate, maybe vaccination, maybe what is a man? What's a woman? I would categorize that under knowledge, not wisdom. So the question becomes bifurcated. Do you want wisdom or do you want knowledge? So I've listened to all these guys from the late 1900s all the way up, and they're good. Some of them are honorable men. But, there's a spectrum, left to right or top to bottom. And what do we have to be? We have to be concerned whenever there's a spectrum. Everything's a spectrum. Everything's a spectrum. That's why you got to understand trade-offs. So what you have to be concerned about is the thing called the Overton window. I saw this years and years ago. Yeah, there's a spectrum. Bill Maher wants gas and nuisance to run instead of Trump because he hates Trump. He suffers from TDS and has Sam Harris on his show who suffers from that severely, acutely. And so they're on the spectrum, and they want a guy like gas and nuisance because, like Obama, he'll come to the middle. But the middle ain't the middle. This is what I saw a long, long time ago. The way my mind works is I see something going on, I analyze it, study it, seek out the wisdom literature on it, and the brightest minds. I've read 500 of the greatest books on everybody's must-read list, But I don't say, well, that's what Locke said, that's what Bacon said, that's what, Thomas Sowell said. No, I don't just go with it. Check it out. I check it out and see whether it's true. So I noticed that, they're saying that he's more to the middle, but the middle has moved. I think that's what they call the Overton window. It's not exactly that, but that's kind of the theme. That's the way it's used. That's the way in the parlance of today, that's how it's used. So the middle has moved left. So if this pendulum is swinging, it swung. They're all the same. Both sides are the same. It swung conservative, and then it'll swing back liberal, and then it'll swing back conservative. But if the center fulcrum, if the pendulum of the balance beam, if it's moved, the fulcrum's moved to the left. So now it's swinging from far left to somewhere near the middle. And Martin Luther King said you never have the right to do what's wrong. So how could there be a middle? In not left and right, there could be a middle, but right and wrong, there's no middle. Yeah, let's do something that's kind of wrong. That's wrong, but it's okay now that it's wrong. I don't know how that's going to work. So that's the point, Them are taking over your country without firing a shot. That's what the communists promised. They already have. The question is whether we'll get it back. If we don't fight like hell, we won't. That simple. Sorry, it's a wake-up call. The government, education, media-attainment complex, the axis of evil. You won't hear that anywhere else. You'll hear somebody talking about conspiracies or, whatever particular rant du jour there is, but you're not going to hear an explanation. This is not mansplaining. It's cansplaining. So don't worry about the government, the industrial military complex, military-industrial complex, MIC. Don't worry about that. Worry about the evil today. That's the government, which is Democrat, education, media-attainment complex. They've got the whole thing. They've got you rigged from cradle to grave. Cradle to grave. And now they're trying to go after the grave with things like inheritance taxes and, what do they talk about? Capital gains. Where'd that come from? We didn't even have income tax till 1913, I think. 1916, I don't know, something like that. So in the progressive period, the last century that started to put the nails in our coffin by converting the Constitution. So, this axis of evil, they took over without firing a shot. And, you're not going to hear that. But some of these guys on the There's 1,000 million podcasts. How are you going to listen to them all? And why are you going to listen to just one? And, some people tell you, listen to both sides and then work it out for yourself. How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? Somebody's pitching to me this media thing called 1440 or something. Oh, we're not a spin. No spin. CNN says the same thing. The Crescent News Network, the Clinton News Network, they say the same thing. No, we tell it like it is. Oh, please. I don't want to get hit by the brimstone by standing too close to you. Are you kidding me? Fake trapper. So, you're not going to hear that. So, some come close, but no cigar. I'll give you some examples, some of the best. Jordan Peterson, Dennis Prager, Ben Shapiro, John Anderson. There's some great ones, but they don't tell you the whole story. They don't know the whole story, or they deny it. They deny the power thereof. So let's talk about this stuff. Let's find out. So here's the strata, and there's a problem. The problem in itself is un poco de conocimiento es peligroso. Un poco de conocimiento es peligroso. Para continuar en español, oprime el 6. But a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. A very dangerous thing. A little knowledge. They think, Dave Smith comes to mind. He's a comedian. So let's talk about who's out there. And this is not, I don't hate anybody. I don't hate anybody. And here's how you'll know I come to you in love and truth and peace. And the reason you'll know that I come into you in love, speaking the truth in love, the reason is because I'm living under a warning. The Plato said that no one's hated more than someone who tells the truth. And saying there is no such thing as truth, or there's your truth and my truth, that's not the truth. Sorry. But, it's a... The reason you'll know is this little thing from wisdom literature. The kisses of an enemy are sweet, but faithful are the wounds of a friend. The kisses of an enemy are sweet, but faithful are the wounds of a friend. I think Socrates postulated it this way. He says, in every election, there's two people. There's a physician who says, you're going to have to eat this, and stop eating that. You're going to have to do some exercise. You're going to have to, or you're going to get worse, and you're not going to get better. You're probably going to die. And the other candidate owns a sweet shop, candy store, and he's like the candy man. Hey, you vote for me, free stuff, free candy. How's that sound, kids? And that's not really a fair fight. That's why the Blessed Founding Fathers tried to keep the candy men out of the equation, the pushers. And we'll talk in later shows about how they did that. So there's this spectrum of all the people that are out there, and I don't hate them. I'm not making fun of them. I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying, how can you listen to them? How can you know that they're telling you the truth? So I'd like to be like a Cliff Notes. I know their arguments better than they do. I know the truth about them. And I know what our contract, I'm like a legal department for America. I know what our contract says, and they can't cheat you out of it. So we're talking about that. But in the spectrum, you could go from left to right. But I think in the case of the voices that are out there, I think it's going to have to be up and down. Like when you see a movie of a World War II movie of a periscope or something, it has this zero line and then it has below and above, kind of like sea level and then underneath it. So it's probably appropriate to start from the bottom. So the bottom are the podcasters that represent the lowest hell, alla Dante. And then coming up a little bit, moving up from there, regular hell. And then the sepulcher and the crypt. You just picture a cross section of earth, and this is kind of what you got. And then the hollow halls of academia. And then the department of fill in the blank. the Department of fill in the blank under the Department of Redundancy Department in this fourth branch of government. I guess the fifth is the press. But so let's back that up again. You got the lowest hell. That's as low as you can go. Then you've got regular hell. Then you've got sepulcher crypt, like Biden has been in for the last 5 years. Then the hollow halls of academia, and then the Department of fill in the blank department, part of the Department of Redundancy Department. Then you get to Congress. You're moving up towards ground level. And you got Hollywood studios, and then the sewer, but I repeat myself, and then the gutter, and then you have the sidewalk and the streets, just above the gutter. That's where they're victims, they're slaves, where they occupy, they live, they block our salvation. And then you get the preschools and the schools, and then you got home, and then you got, because some of the schools do a good job. Some actually are doing a good job. They're not part of the system. And then you got home, and then you've got buildings, real edifices, things that edify. That's what that word edificio means, build up. So building isn't bad. Buildings aren't bad. And then you have high rises, if they're towers of truth, not ivory towers. And then you have the legitimate mountaintop wisdom, and then you have heaven. So you're kind of moving up there. So these folks fall onto this. By the way, the streets and sidewalk, Pocahontas said that she owns those. We built them. Not we the people. We, she, her, they, them. The classists, the statists that want to create class warfare and be rich, but sell you out. It's always the middle class. They always sell out. That's kids. That's who you're helping out. You're helping to sell out your parents. Don't let your parents down. They're bringing you up. Don't let them down. I used to say that when I coached little kids in basketball. Your parents are bringing you up. Don't let them down. Don't join the enemy and sell out everything that gave you everything. So, I'm just going to name a whole bunch of folks just to give you an example of who I've listened to, because I've listened to all of them, and I've learned from them. Every man is my superior, and that I may learn from them. But sometimes I learn that they're wrong. Even Charlie Kirk, there's a few things. I've studied all of these things about twice as long as he did. About twice as long as before somebody stole him. I heard a ballad the other day that said that a lot of people thought he'd be president someday. Should have. But somebody stole that away. A narcissist, a they, them, a tyrant. So anyway, there was Charlie Kirk. You can find him online. Victor Davis Hanson, brilliant. Dennis Prager. John Anderson, this guy from New Zealand, used to be their vice president. There's a guy called Dad Saves America. It's really good. There's an Officer Tatum, a former sheriff or something. There's this Dan Bongino we'll come back to him because he had a chance to be number 2. You're number 2 in the FBI and bailed out. So think about that for a minute. Just put a knife in that one and think about it for a minute. Because why did he bail out? He wants to go back to being podcaster. Well, maybe have more influence on saving the nation than there, where they don't seem to do anything about anything. There's a guy named Louder with Crowder, Matt Walsh, who made a couple of great movies. What is a Woman and Am I Racist? Ben Shapiro. There's this wonderful guy, outstanding dude named Coleman Hughes. Fantastic. There's this couple of brothers from they ran track together in college, and then they started a show called the Cartier Family, or Cartier. I don't know how you pronounce it, but I think it's a made-up name. But they're great. They're great. And it's been just a blast watching them wake up, grow up, put up, and shut up the people that are doing the opposite. I wrote to them to see if I could get together with them. Haven't heard anything yet, but shout out to them. They're good. There's a beautiful lady named Sage Steele. Most of the, I'm not a gorgeous woman like you seem to have to be a decent comedian or podcaster these days. They really put a lot into it and dominate the screen with their look. I don't want you to see me. I don't matter. He must increase, I must decrease. I don't need you to see who I am as I'm reacting to things. I'm either telling the truth or I'm not. So kind of a disembodied broadcaster to the resistance from a radio somewhere behind enemy lines, literally behind enemy lines in the Civil War that still continued. So there's these magnificent shows. One of them's by the Hoover Institute at Stanford, where Thomas Sowell and Shelby Steele and others are. It's called Uncommon Knowledge. I think Peter Robinson is the host. Brilliant, excellent, just the best. There's one called The American Mind from the Claremont Institute, Claremont School, or Claremont Review of Books. Charles, I forget his last name, but he's terrific. Michael Malice, who's an anarchist, very smart, very clever, but he's an anarchist. Think about that. There's a guy that I've seen now who has white hair and glasses, and he has an AI voice, and it's just almost robotic. I cannot remember his name, but he's very, very good. He's real good. He just explains the thing, but it's hard to keep up with him. There's Konstantin Kisin and Francis Fosta from Trigonometry. I don't want to leave anybody out, but then there's a bunch of bald or beanied bros, No offense, but there's a guy, Sean Ryan or something. Yeah, I've seen his show. Pretty good. I saw a guy, a fighter with a broken jaw, Luke Paul or something. He's fighting, or he's not fighting. I guess he fought a big monster and broke his jaw, and he's interviewing Trump, and Trump goes on there. There's Rogan and Bongino again, Tim Dillon, Tucker Carlson, Dave Smith. I mean, some of these guys are comedians. I guess they're comedians, and that allows them to. I guess Joe Rogan says he's a comedian too. I saw a little bit of his shtick, a little stand-up, kind of like Kat Timpf, who's on Gutfeld, who's brilliant. Scott Adams I left out up there. Scott Adams was great, very brilliant, but you get along in teaching, and all these people sitting at his feet, and then he's just wrong. He's just flat wrong about things. So let me tell you where. I think it'll help. There's that Cuomo, what they call him, Frodo or Fredo or something from The Godfather, Colbert. They're talking about Colbert. He's thinking, you're fired, says CBS, in 10 months. I'm going to pay you $15 million a year until then. But you're fired. And then he just spends the time celebrating himself and sniveling. And he's going to go probably be a podcaster. What has he ever said that had any value whatsoever? And this smart guy at work told me that he thought Colbert was brilliant, just brilliant. I've never seen anything. And then you get down lower and lower to, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, who, they've fallen from grace. They used to be pretty good. They've lost their minds. Nick Fuentes, never heard of him, but, the brown shirts of the Nazis, they were pretty influential. And then there's this charlatan defraud, a house N-word, glad of it. Has Hillary on his show, has Joe Biden on his show, and lets Joe Biden tell him, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. And all he can come up with is, he didn't get out of his chair and punch him. Well, I guess he was on the screen in his basement, so he couldn't. But he said very eloquently, that don't got nothing to do with it. That don't got nothing to do with it. But then he just shreds Biden and says, but if he picks Kamala Harris, got my vote. So he's a racist, an ignorant racist. He doesn't know anything about Kamala Harris, except the color of her skin, sort of, kind of. Like with Obama, or blah, blah. So, you can listen to these folks. It's obviously you can. You can listen to whoever you want. You listen to Dan Patrick or whatever. There's some good sportscasters who talk about something that's not all that important, but fun and interesting. I don't think we can do that. I want you to think about something. There's this principle of Cincinnatus. The Society of Cincinnatus. And Cincinnatus was a farmer, but he was also a general. And Rome needed to be saved. So he puts down just like a Minuteman, he puts down the pitchfork, puts down the plow, puts down the hoe, and he goes out and militarily saves Rome, their world. And a lot of the world by extension, because there's this thing called the Pax Romana, where as long as there was order, what do you get? You know what the word cosmos means? Like in this expression, for God so loved the world, the cosmos means to bring order out of chaos. So, you talk about Rome being imperialist and tyranny, but they also had some stability. So anyway, Cincinnatus goes and puts down the plow, saves the world, the country, and by extension, the world. Just like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams. If you asked them what they really were, they would all say they're farmers. But they had to put down the plow, like that Minuteman statue at Lexington, Concord, and pick up the rifle and save the world, and then go back to being farming. You know what? They really wanted to do that. But they had to do it. So I was trying to kind of explain this concept. I was talking to my boss. He was a director, and part of that feminine class that is really destroying the country. But anyway, that'll be explained elsewhere. Right now, I'm talking to him about this idea because, before the meeting started, just he and I, we're talking about politics, right? Talking about politics. Yeah, we were talking about politics. And I told him, I said, the person that doesn't want the job, the person that doesn't want it, but says, by God, I got to do it. Otherwise, somebody really bad will take it. And everything will just get worse and worse. And I was literally watching that happen to my department in this company, a big high-tech corporation. And he made a face like he could not comprehend. His MBA got in the way. He doesn't even know. He's from Pennsylvania, where named after William Penn, who said men will be governed by God or ruled by tyrants. That's it. If you don't want to be ruled by the 10 commandments, you're going to be ruled by the 10,000 commandments. And here we are. The more the laws, the less the liberty. But so he thinks that, a guy like Biden or blah blah that had nothing, no qualifications, but just ambition, blind ambition and greed and corruption. And Washington said that he said that political factions, they didn't call them parties back then. He hated factions. He wanted Americans to run for office, not parties, not some figurehead at the head of a party that's being run by a machine somewhere else, just a puppet, demagogue puppet, making us all into puppets. He said, political parties render character irrelevant, even a hindrance. I knew about Joe Biden since he first came out, before the hair plugs. When he was just this creep, this, drunken realtor from the Kiwanis Club picnic that's just getting on everybody's nerves. He just lied and hung around until, the machine put him in. That's what we want. He didn't want to get back to his farm. He didn't want to say, I don't. And whatever you want to say about Trump, however bad your TDS is, He's been making videos for 30 or 40 years. You can look it up. And he's saying, I would never want to be president. Well, why would he? He's living large, and he has to get shot at and hated every single night. Just hated. I'm reminded of someone at work that almost derailed my career, thanks to the beauties at HR. I was innocent, but that didn't matter. I was the wrong gender. That's back in the days when men were men and women weren't men, according to them. So anyway, she I found out that she didn't like me. She was working for me. She didn't like me because I reminded her of her ex-husband. We didn't get into, nobody ever thought about, maybe her whole family urged her not to marry that guy. Or maybe she was the problem in the relationship. But that was it for her. I reminded her. That's the way a lot of the women like Gus and Nuisance and Kimmy Kimmel and Fry from Mogadishu, Minnesota, and Chuck Schmuckfumer, Pete Buttigieg, all these women out there, Colbert, Bill Maher. That's why they hate him. They just hate him. They don't really understand. They can't put their finger. They can't explain it. They don't have to. They just hate him. But he was saying, I would never want to be president. But if I keep seeing the constant screw-ups of this country that I love, I'm going to run. So, you could put him in the category of Cincinnatus. He wants to go back to his life. He's got a great family. He's got a great place to live, He's not the only one who has a mansion. Don't kid yourself. BS has one. Bernie Sanders, Pocahontas. I think Bernie has 3 of them on your nickel. But he can sell me down the river with my little place that I scraped my whole life to try to afford. So, I'm just asking one thing. Prove me wrong. Come, let us reason together. Come, let us reason together. That's not too much to ask. I don't want to do this. It's not very popular. To be popular is easy, but to be right when it's not popular is noble. So we used to say things like that. We used to believe things like that. There used to be a purpose to our living. There used to be a moral compass. And they've just smoke and mirrored, smoke screened it away, just substituted bait and switch. BS, when you think of BS, bait and switch. So as we go forward, I'd like you to think about, we're going to talk about what great minds talk about. Great minds talk about ideas. Average minds talk about events, and small minds talk about people. So we won't talk about people, only in the context of what they represent. Pocahontas doesn't Elizabeth warrant any talking about her? Never confuse celebrity with significance. She's not a thinker. She's not a visionary. She's an opportunist. Even plays cultural appropriation to get ahead. Liar. So these people, there's no, we're not even questioning. So we talk about her, we talk about what she represents, what Bernie represents. He represents Vermont. He's from New York City, just like Pelosi and Boxer, and they represent the end. They represent the eve of destruction. And it's going on. It's been going on for a century. So we're going to talk about ideas behind it, not the personalities, not the celebrity of it. There's a nice little meme. It shows somebody painted on a monument somewhere in, one of those electronics boxes in the city on the sidewalk, and it said, "Stop making stupid people famous." Could we? Could we do that? Could we just call a timeout to that? So, don't Don't become my enemy because I've told you the truth. I hope that you'll thank me someday, but this isn't fun. This is dangerous. I'm behind enemy lines. Behind enemy lines. And you lose family and friends. You lose family and friends when you follow the truth, just like the Master said. So anyway, peace and love. Let's talk and let's have hope. Let's have hope for change. Let's have hope for change. Real hope. Real hope. There's a funny anecdote about that I'll tell you on one of these topics, one of these series, one of these episodes. Anyway, greetings, farewell, in truth and love and peace. No justice, no peace. No truth, no nothing. You can't have love and peace without truth. You can have gulag, you can have misery, you can have a lot of things, but you won't have peace, love, and truth. It's time to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable, like Charlie Kirk did. So, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you. I can't thank you enough, because we're in this together. We the people. We're in this together. Let's do it. Let's save the country. Let's save the world by extension. And don't let anybody tell you different. You have a right. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about my birthright. Citizenship. That's my birthright. Citizenship. That's yours. If you give it away, it's like, I don't know, printing money, which makes your money worthless. Worthless. Because you just print money, you just print more of it. So you give away my birthright, which is citizenship. You give it away to anybody you feel like this month, this time of the month. You're going to take it from me. You can't give something of mine to someone else without taking it from me. I don't know how you do that. Alchemy? Anyway, thank you. Thanks for listening. Thank you for your patience as we get this figured out. And go in peace and love. Thanks again. This is Jeremiah Gunn, Professor No, K-N-O-W, the undocumented expert, saying thank you and farewell. Talk to you next time.